Hey good people, it's Batavia here. I have found myself in a pretty tight spot. I am in between my neighbor's fence and the cage baby in my yard. This is where I have most of my full-size tomatoes. And the goal here is to keep the squirrels away from the tomatoes once the tomatoes start to ripen. And I was in her yard this morning and I noticed, I was tying up my sunflowers and I noticed that some of the tomatoes have started to get so big where they are pushing up against the wire. This is chicken wire used for the cage baby. And so I already learned this season that the squirrels will latch on to the chicken wire and they will start to gnaw away at the tomatoes from this side, but still they can get to the tomatoes. So I am hoping to pull the chicken wire out. This version of it's pretty flexible, and tie it to the the fence here in an attempt to save the tomatoes. That's the goal here, to save the tomatoes. So wish me luck. Happy gardening.
Okie doke, so it's a few weeks later and we have an update. So the string and the bungee cords, they've done their job. The tomatoes and the squirrels have been separated and kept apart. There's a big boy tomato that's starting to get ripe. That cluster of tomatoes there is the orange ox heart. And I don't know, now realizing it's the orange ox heart that was close to the fencing, if the squirrels would have bothered those. I've noticed that they really go for the red tomatoes, but better safe than sorry. So I have been thinking ever since I climbed back there the first time how I was going to get those tomatoes out when it came time to pick them or harvest them from the plant. And I decided not to try to go in from the front side because I was afraid I was going to damage the plant and maybe even knock off some of the tomatoes and damage them. So I am just carefully scaling while holding onto the fence. I'm scaling the back side of bed number 5, which sits in front of the cage baby. That's the one that you can see with the hoop and the white cover. And so I've taken my garden apron and clipped it to the fence as I kind of squeeze back in between the fence and the cage again. But I did have some garden favor. There actually was a hole, if you will, in the cage earlier this season before I started planting. And I noticed that it's just where one of the pieces of the wire ends and another begins. And so I was able to secure that with just a stray piece of wire. But this also allowed me to just unwind it here and then slide my arm in and just pull those tomatoes off of the plant. And luckily, because of kind of the state of ripeness they're in, I was able just to twist the tomatoes off versus needing to use like scissors or something, which I do in some cases depending on which tomatoes that are coming off of the plant. So there are other green tomatoes that are getting close to the state of, becoming ripe. And for this season, I'll probably use this method to get to them. I've thought about, what's the best approach for next season. I haven't landed on anything yet. I have been thinking about pruning tomatoes, at least one over the years. But that's quite a bit of work, and I'm not sure if I'm ready for that commitment. Although there are other benefits beyond just not having to climb back here. There are other reported benefits when it comes to pruning. So I've not ruled that out. But I also will just be honest and say I may just do this next season as well. We'll see. So here I'm just closing everything up and I am going to make the walk back. If I am really honest with myself, if I had not been greedy and wanted to plant all the tomatoes, what I'm walking past right now is the cherry tomato plant that's gone wild. I would have at least been able, if that wasn't there, to walk straight back. There's about 2 feet of space in between these two beds. I would have been able to walk back. I would have still needed to squeeze in between the fence and the cage baby, but it would have made for a little bit of an easier trip. But hey, I've saved the tomatoes. Don't go anywhere though, because there are more tomatoes to be harvested and picked off the plant. This was actually the most productive day for tomatoes. I was able to harvest or pick at least 2 off of each of the plants I have in the cage baby. There are 5 different tomato plants in the cage baby, and this is the first time this season that I was able to take a tomato off of each of them. And you'll notice that it's a little bit easier than on the back side, but in some instances I'm kind of digging deep and getting down low and kind of reaching in to get those tomatoes. A lot of the ones that are ready for picking at this point are kind of deeper inside of the cage. But that's what I experienced last year, and that's fine. Okie doke, so we are wrapping up part 1 and the tomatoes have been saved. I hope you join us next week for part 2, where we will be back in the kitchen doing a bit of tomato talk and a bunch of tomato tasting. So look forward to that video and sharing that with you. I really appreciate you spending the time with me. I thank you. And if you are looking for more garden joy, go ahead and subscribe. Feel free to like and comment. And hit that notification bell so you'll know when I am sharing more garden joy.